Now today, we're talking about soul, reincarnation, and karma. And what I really want you to understand, as I said, are all these basic building blocks of this approach. Now, when you're doing astrology charts, you know, when you're learning with anybody else, you don't really talk about soul, reincarnation, karma quite that much. But for me, doing astrology and then learning, I mean, if you study with evolutionary astrologers, you're going to get a good dose of it. But for me, this model of soul I'm going to explain to you today underscores everything I do in astrology. Those of you who've had readings with me or sound bites or have read the Soul's Journey books, you kind of have this sense, or did the Pluto webinars through Astrology Hub last year, you have a sense of there's like this whole like philosophical model in play. Today I'm going to reveal all of it to you so that you can really get grounded in it. For some of you, you're going to say, that makes sense. I've understood that my whole life, but didn't use those words. For others, you'll say, you know, stop the presses. I have 10 questions. It's all good. But anyway, soul, reincarnation, and karma for me, you know, what I've learned from the Ascended Master that I work with has helped me do the astrology I do, and that's the whole point here. So let's just let me see how to advance the slides here. There we go. Okay, so where I'm coming from, just a little background on me, if you don't know, because it kind of is a whole big story, or one whole cohesive story. I jumped into astrology in mid-2003, and I was intuitively piqued. I overheard somebody say something about the Saturn return, and he didn't know much more than it was around age 30, this invitation to mature. And I said, what is that? I just overheard it at a friend's house. And I knew whatever that was, I had to jump in. So this was total, like, kind of an intuitive guidance thing for me to jump into it. At the time, just for reference, transiting Chiron was exactly on my North Node in Capricorn in the 4th. So I needed to dive deeply into myself to understand blah, blah, blah. And Chiron, you know, maturation in Capricorn has to do with understanding energy and emotion and getting to the bottom of things, especially in the 4th house. So when I was studying astrology and I dove in, I immersed myself, I kept finding what I thought was disempowering or defeatist. And it was really upsetting because I knew that there was a better way to use this, but I didn't know what it was. I found Steve Forrest's work in 2004, and I said, oh, he's figured out a life-affirming system. I don't have to spend years trying to figure out how to articulate a way to use astrology that is humane and, you know, gives people something to go on. And then I joined his apprenticeship program that year, and I started going. I knew that we all have choice and that we can't let ourselves be stuck, but that we get stuck. So I knew that, you know, I had kind of had that like Sagittarius optimism thing, but I also had this kind of like Plutonian heaviness thing. I was like, I didn't know what to do. Didn't know how to deal with being alive, actually. I needed something life-affirming. And I needed to know how to live. And really, actually, I majored in philosophy for my undergrad degree. And that was basically the aim of all philosophy, is to teach you how to live. And so I really am coming from that place. I was drawn toward philosophy, I guess, for that reason. That's where I was coming from. And I needed to understand why things happen the way they do, especially the painful things. And I think for me, I was just kind of bottled up with anger and sadness. And so I was always looking for a way to deal with it that was productive, but wasn't only psychological or whatever. I just couldn't quite find the right thing. And then this is what I found. And in short, I needed help with a lifelong existential crisis. That's who I am. I'm a walking existential crisis. And so my motivation is, how can you live a happy life? How can you live? How can you choose to be on this plane when such shitty shit can happen? How do you understand all that? And so that's where my motivation is in doing this work and even learning astrology in the first place. So why do astrology this way, this kind of multidimensional approach? Psychological models aren't enough. And you can't talk your way out of the most intense things. Mythological models aren't really meant to help you understand. It's social instruction. It's to train you how to be the right kind of member of this group or that group. So it's anyway. So myth is social instruction, and you're you're supposed to do this, you're not supposed to do that, and it's to keep you a part of a group. So myth doesn't really help me, but I kind of appealed to that psychological stuff, myth stuff. Spiritual models tend to be based in religion or kind of new agey, and I couldn't buy any of that stuff. Even some channeled stuff, I just couldn't always buy it, and sometimes it's ungrounded. Sometimes it's like the most channel information you get is, look, you're not alone. Beings elsewhere love you. Keep plugging away, people. And I was like, I need something. I need some substance, you know. And I realized for my own path, I had to do my own. So there were channeled visions I found, like all the Palladium material speaks to me really loudly, for example, and some other things. But I kind of needed to do my own. So I've learned we are energetic beings. We are consciousness. We are not brains with bodies and bodies with brains with these pesky emotions. We are energetic beings. To truly understand a person, you have to get to the source that underlies everything, the energetic battery that's fueling or charging that person's life. And so this multidimensional approach was really necessary for me. It's not enough to, as I said, to talk through things. It's not enough to, you know, look at cause and effect, which can lead to judgment about blame, you know, blaming stuff. It's not enough. So energy is experienced as and creates emotion. And I was learning this, as I said, I was kind of bottled up. And as I dealt with stuff, I learned about the links between energy and emotion. And I was like, there's something really, really interesting happening here. And so to help people, we have to get to the emotional source of beliefs, behaviors, and choices. Astrology is a symbolic language, a language of energy. We might say of consciousness, of life, of the multi-life journey, but astrology is a tool to get to the true thing that we have to work with if we want to do anything interesting with astrology, or really helpful, really healing. And that's getting to the emotional source of things. And I also was really affected as I was learning astrology in that immersion by this kind of implicit philosophical construct in astrology that things are happening to you. And you'll find some authors who say, you know, you have choice, you're creating this energy. But this idea that like the planets are moving and things are happening to you, that construct really, really bothered me. And so understanding that we are energy and that we are vibrating things, that really helped unlock a lot of insights for me. So let's just pause for a minute and do a definition of evolutionary astrology as developed by Steve Forrest and Jeff Green. This is just a quote from one of their books.